I think it's important for me to make you aware of the fact that we are facing really, really significant challenges with staffing right now at every one of our T&G schools. I've spent extensive time with principals trying to figure out how to keep our doors open and classrooms open. And there are not very many, if any, substitutes. People are being very, very creative to get classes covered. I am very impressed at the level of creativity that our principals are using. But I have held strong that I really want us, if it's at all possible, for us not to close a classroom other than because of our need to quarantine, that we don't do that. But it's getting more and more difficult with the level of spread in the community and people being close contacts. We have, increasing numbers of people who need to quarantine, and there just aren't enough bodies to cover it. And I want to make sure that I'm really upfront with you as a board about this as a challenge that we're facing right now. I think it's important that you know. So that's the only thing I'd add right now to what's there, but I did want to make you aware of it.
Thank you, Randy. And of course, that relates to the item that is in the budget for permanent subs, doesn't it, in the way?
It does, and it will be very interesting to see on the other side of this where we are with subs. We've had challenges for the 8 years that I've been here. It's been a challenge, and this year is just unprecedentedly bad.
Melanie had a hand up.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and I'm not positive you can answer this, but if you can, I'm curious if your sub situation, I'm trying to think of how to frame this. Are teachers still teaching when quarantine, when possible, but remotely? Or are you, if people are quarantining, then they are not teaching, and that's why we're having it's so challenging?
So it depends on the situation, but either way, if they were teaching, I still need coverage for their kids.
I mean, in the classroom itself.
Exactly. So the staffing issue remains because of some of that. And so unless there's a quarantine due to exposure at school, we don't have people quarantining and teaching from home. It doesn't buy us an advantage because those students still need to be supervised in the classroom. And we also have to look at the entire staffing, what's allowed and what isn't on an equitable basis because of the agreement, the staff agreement. So it's just really complicated right now. Dick?
Dick.
Given the governor's priorities, would we be assisted a little bit if we could move our teachers a little higher into the priority?
We'd be assisted by a lot if our teachers were moved a little higher in the priority. But yes, it is certainly possible that with a vaccine that we would not have the numbers of people needing to quarantine that we do now.
If that's the case, can we as a board think about passing a motion requesting of the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Education, that our teachers, because of the substitute problem, need to be moved up with respect to the priority so that we can continue to operate schools?
Seems to me that would be in order.
So I make that motion.
Okay, Lee?
I would second it. I don't know if we need to clarify the language, but I definitely think there's some discussion on that worth sort of poking
So
into.
moved by Dick, seconded by Lee. Celeste, can you read back what Dick's motion appears to be? We may need to refine it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, Dick.
My motion was to petition.
It, Dick?
My motion was to petition the Secretary of Education to move, because of the shortage of substitutes, our teachers up in the priority list so that we can maintain schools, maintain our teaching.
And I would, I guess, I don't know if we...
You can wordsmith it.
move into discussion, but I mean, I think maintain and increase. If the goal is to have all in person by April, I know we've moved that way a lot in our schools in the T and G, but certainly, Burton Academy is our primary high school for our community.
Dick and
there,
Lee,
my knowledge,
since you're the mover and the seconder, is to add and increase okay with both of you?
Yes.
What was the question?
Whether it's okay to add increase after maintain. That was the suggestion by Ben, because right now we're not doing full in person. So I think what he's talking about is
okay.
Does
The other thing I was going to bring up.
Go ahead, Ben.
I actually raised my hand for, not the second, but I'm fine with seconding it. Is the Secretary of Education the right person, or is it the Secretary of Health?
Yeah, my recommendation would be the Secretary of Education and the Department of Health, sending it to both of them.
I accept.
Could we? Is it
Melanie, go
possible
ahead.
maybe we could somebody would type that up and just put it in the chat so that we have something to look at? I mean, that sounds just like I'm all for it. I'm not arguing against it at all. It is something important, and I think it'd be really important for all of us to really have some eyes on it, since it's not really anywhere else.
Is the motion, Dick, for us to get the language specifically, or is the motion about the intent of what will be included in the letter that goes?
Because it came without much wordsmithing. The intent is to get our schools in a position where we don't have shortages of teachers due to a large amount of quarantining. That's my intent. And where it goes, we're making an appeal because even Mr. Biden wants us to get back in the classroom. And as long as the governor and his various people don't vaccinate our teachers, that's going to become increasingly, based on what you said, more difficult. And I'd like to see our kids get back as full-time as they possibly can. So it's an appeal.
Mm-hmm.
We have at least 3 comments or questions. John, Melanie, and then Jane.
I'm not sure if anyone's interested, but there's a petition that's been going around the state prioritizing COVID-19 vaccination for Vermont teachers and school staff. That has about 6,000 people. 5,500 have signed it so far. And so that's something I could send the link around if I can in the chat. I'm not sure if I'm able to. But also, I guess my question is, of course, in favor of that intent. As far as the guidelines go, even if you have the vaccine, is there are you still required to will the quarantine restrictions still be in place?
Before I get to the next comment, if anybody knows the answer to that, go ahead and tell us what it is.
At this point, nothing's changed, John, from the Department of Health feedback to us.
Okay. All right, Melanie.
Right, but the point is that if the teachers are not directly exposed to family members who, if they're not getting it, then they don't necessarily need to quarantine. And if people around them are less likely to get it because they're not bringing it home, they're going to be less likely to have to quarantine.
Thanks, Lee.
So it will decrease the quarantine need somewhat, but it isn't going to change the rules if you're exposed.